Greetings, captains of industry. This is Eric Miller here with a quick update on the saga of the KelTec P15. So, as I mentioned in a previous video, after 2 trips to KelTec, the gun was running very well. There was, however, one minor issue that I wasn't too freaked out about, but it did bother me. That was the mag release would pop out if pressed too hard, which would happen while changing mags, making the gun useless. This didn't rain too hard on my parade since I wasn't carrying an extra mag with me, so the issue seemed unlikely to affect me while carrying the gun. However, it was still a problem and I wanted it fixed. I waited for a little while to see if KelTec was going to do anything about it, maybe a recall or something like that. Well, nothing happened. And I did hear that someone else who had this problem sent their gun back in and had it fixed. So, I did the same. So there are a few things that happened here. First, when I spoke on the phone to someone from KelTec about this issue, I was told that I would have to pay for shipping to Florida, which I had not done on the previous 2 times it was sent back in. I was told that since it had been longer than 90 days since I purchased the gun, I would be reimbursed for shipping and not given a shipping label. Well, that's great and all, except I haven't been reimbursed yet. Maybe the check is in the mail. So other than that, I got it back quickly and in good order, and here is what the repair notice said. Updated ejector and striker spring to the newest version, replaced grip and mag catch, polished feed ramp. Okay, let's start with the actual problem I sent it in for, the mag release. When I first looked at this, it didn't look any different than it did before. I can still push the mag catch in about as far as I could previously, but for some weird reason, it doesn't dive into the magwell like it did before. Now, my suggestion in an earlier video was to modify how the metal part was being machined, since the molds these plastic parts come out of are unlikely to get modified. However, that seems to be exactly what KelTec did. They modified the molds. This new button is just slightly taller than the original, by less than a millimeter, but it's just enough to prevent it from getting swallowed into the magwell. So this is fixed, and if your gun is having this issue, I'd say send it in and get it fixed. So why was this happening to me? Well, beats me. I can say that my gun was in the very first batch of mass-produced guns, and so I expected it to potentially have some issues. But at this point, it seems most of these teething issues have been shaken out. So they also did a couple of other things here. Let's take a look at those. First was that they replaced the ejector. I think this is not correct, as this is the ejector, but I think the whole fire control unit would need to be replaced if that were the case, which it wasn't. I think what they meant was that they replaced the extractor, which does appear to be slightly different than the original. I remember the original being quite a bit longer. In fact, it was so long, I meant to point it out in one of the previous videos, but I never got around to it. So I don't know what the issue was with the longer extractor, and if anybody knows, please leave a comment about it. All I know is that I think it's probably slightly different than the original. As for the striker spring, it looks identical to the original from what I can remember, so it beats me how it changed. The original might have had a flat spring? I'm not sure. One thing I can point out here is that when I took the rear cover off to inspect the striker spring, I found that whoever reassembled this, whose initials are JM, destroyed this spring when putting it back together. So this is the striker safety spring, which is necessary for the striker safety to work. Now, surprisingly, it still works in this condition, but obviously it's not ideal. I actually destroyed this spring myself when I was reassembling this part several months back, and I will say that it is tricky to get this cover back on without turning this spring into a curly fry. Fortunately for me, when I requested to purchase a replacement spring from KelTec, they mailed me 2 replacements for free. So I have an extra one. I think the trick is to make sure that the top of this spring is behind this plastic bar, and to make sure it goes down straight and not at an angle, which is hard to do since you're fighting against the striker spring in the back and the big leaf spring in the front. Once you have it kind of started, you also have to remember to put the loaded chamber indicator back in, and then you can screw it back down. FYI, this extra long screw goes in the right rear hole, and you may need to move the striker safety out of the way to screw it in properly. The other thing they did was to polish my feed ramp. I had been thinking about doing that myself, but this was just an extra super nice thing for them to do for me, for which I say thank you. Anyway, I knew that buying a brand new gun design from KelTec was probably going to be a bad idea, and it kinda was. This is a very low serial number gun and has been back to Florida 3 times for 3 separate issues. I'm hoping that this will be the last time I have to do it, but we can see with all these little teeny tiny updates that they've introduced over the last 9 or 10 months that this gun has been out, it looks to me as though KelTec has worked out most of these initial teething issues with this design. Anyway, I'm glad to have it back. It's so light and easy to carry that I really missed having it, and I'm looking forward to getting a red dot mounting option, and then we'll really be cooking with gas. Anyway, a lot of people have been asking, how does it shoot? And I will say this, no gun this small or light is great to shoot, but the P15 is really not bad. However, no joke, putting the backstrap on utterly changes the way this gun shoots, and all for the better. If you don't try shooting this thing with the backstrap on, even if you have tiny little hands, you are missing out. Anyway, until something else crazy happens, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks a lot, guys. Stay safe, have fun, kids.